Imagine this. It's dawn. You're looking at one of the holiest places in the entire world. And then, a streak of light tears across the sky, followed by an explosion. So, was this just some terrible accident of war? Or was it something else entirely? Something calculated? Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's just break this down for a second. The date alone, September 11th. I mean, that's going to get your attention, right? Then the location, Medina, the city of the Prophet. And on top of all that, a missile streaks across the sky. Suddenly, there's really only one question on everyone's mind, and it is a terrifying one. Why?
All right, so let's stick to the facts for a moment. What do we actually know happened? It's 5:43 in the morning, just before prayers. An object, a missile, slices through the sky right over the Prophet's mosque. A few seconds later, this massive boom echoes through the whole city. Now, thankfully, defense systems kicked in and intercepted it. And while the prayers inside actually continued, you can bet that outside everything was different. A brand new, much more tense reality had just arrived.
So in all that chaos and confusion, you know how it is. One story starts to emerge and take hold. It's the most obvious explanation, really, an idea that kind of makes sense given the fire's already burning all over the region.
To really get this first theory, you kind of have to pull the camera back and look at the big picture. I mean, at this point, the whole Middle East is basically a powder keg. Israel is fighting on multiple fronts: Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and the skies are just, well, one source said they were flooded with missile attacks. So yeah, the easiest, most logical assumption: this missile over Medina was just a stray spark that flew off a much, much bigger bonfire.
And just like that, a story solidifies. Here's the thinking. Forces down in Yemen, probably the Houthis, right? They launch a missile, aiming for Israel. It's a long shot, and on its way, it has to fly over Saudi Arabia. The Saudis see it, recognize it as an enemy missile, and boom, they shoot it down. Simple. Case closed, right? Just a stray bullet in a bigger war.
But here's the thing. Even if it was just an accident, nobody was missing the point. The fact that it got so close to such a profoundly holy site, that alone felt like a massive violation. I mean, one analyst put it perfectly. If that interception had failed, if that missile had hit, the world would have woken up to something way, way worse than war.
So from this point of view, it doesn't even matter if it was an accident. The message was loud and clear. This was a huge wake-up call. It showed everyone just how vulnerable the very heart of the Islamic world was. And the takeaway? Well, it was pretty straightforward. The Arab nations better get their act together and unite before that fire starts burning down their own houses.
And look, that's a really compelling story. It makes a lot of sense. But what if it's too simple? What if this wasn't just a war spilling over its borders? What if this was about something much older, much deeper, a conflict that's been playing out in the shadows for a long, long time?
So you see what's happening here? This one single event, this missile, it splits into two completely different stories. On one hand, you've got this shared religious threat that's crying out for unity, for solidarity. But on the other hand, it's a cold, hard power play. It's not about faith, it's about ambition, about resources. So which is it? Solidarity or strategy?
Okay, so let's dive into that second story, because this one changes everything. It argues that the missile wasn't an accident. Not at all. It was a deliberate move in a much bigger and honestly a much more cynical game.
So what if this whole thing has absolutely nothing to do with religion? According to one analyst, Pankaj Prasoon, the religious angle is basically a smokescreen. He says if you want to know what's really going on, you've got to follow the money. It's about business. It's about profit. It's about power.
Now, to understand this power game, you need to know about something called the 3 H's. That's Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. The whole argument here is that these aren't just separate, independent groups doing their own thing. Nope, they're seen as proxies. Basically, they're funded and armed by Iran to fight its battles for it, to stir up trouble and destabilize its rivals all over the region.
And the strategy is pretty straightforward when you lay it out. Step 1, Iran, which is the big Shia power in the region, bankrolls these proxy groups. Step 2, those proxies, a great example being the Houthis in Yemen, start challenging the Sunni governments that are in power. And the endgame, Step 3, overthrow that Sunni influence, put in Shia-friendly leaders, and basically redraw the entire power map of the Middle East.
And it's not just one rivalry, it's actually like a three-way chess match. You've got Saudi Arabia, and their claim to fame is, hey, we're the guardians of Mecca and Medina. Then you have Turkey, who's kind of saying, remember the Ottoman Empire? Yeah, that was us. We're back.
And then there's Iran, positioning itself as the undisputed leader of Shia Islam. All three of them are in this massive competition to be, for lack of a better term, the king of the Arab world.
So let's bring it back to that missile over Medina. If you look at it through this lens, the interception had zero to do with protecting Israel. The Houthis are a direct threat to Saudi Arabia, and they're backed by Iran, the Saudis' biggest rival. Of course they're going to shoot down a Houthi missile in their airspace. It's just another shot being fired in a war that's already been going on for years between them.
But just when you think you've got it figured out, here comes the twist. The NMF news analysis brings up a really good question. Okay, so the Saudi air defense system, right? It's American, it's top of the line, super effective. So, why is it that when Israel launched a missile at Qatar, which also flew over Saudi Arabia, that same super effective system just sat there and did nothing?
Well, the answer, according to this line of thinking, brings another major player onto the board, the United States. The argument goes like this. The U.S. actually benefits from all this chaos. By selling weapons to different sides, by picking and choosing when to step in, it keeps all the local powers fighting amongst themselves, keeps them dependent, and that secures American control over the one thing that matters most, oil. In this view, all the religious and sectarian fighting is just a distraction, a tablet fed to the masses to keep them from seeing who's really pulling the strings.
Okay, so where are we now? We've got one event and two totally fundamentally different ways of looking at it. And this is so important because figuring out how both of these stories can feel true at the exact same time, that's really the key to understanding the whole region. So let's just lay it out. Reality number one is all about faith. A missile over a holy city is a terrifying, gut-wrenching violation. It feels like a sign that the world is spinning out of control. Then you have reality number two, the world of power politics. And in that world, the missile was just another move on the chessboard, a calculated risk in a long game for money and influence. Two truths, one event.
And that right there, that's where the real danger is. It's not just the geopolitics by itself, and it's not just the religious passion by itself. The truly explosive point is where those two worlds collide. It's where the cold, cynical calculations of powerful people can suddenly ignite the very real, very deep beliefs of millions.
Look, that missile over Medina was stopped, but the question it leaves behind is chilling. In a place that's defined by these overlapping worlds, ancient faith and super-modern warfare, sacred ground and strategic resources, what happens when the next spark lands? And more importantly, will we be lucky enough for it to be intercepted too?